Welcome everyone. Obviously, name's John Krug, and I'm here to speak to you about Project Community Docs to SUSE Rancher Prime product docs, which is a bit of a mouthful, so I will refer to project and community quite frequently and just mean those sorts of documentation. So a little bit about me first. I've been at SUSE 2 years. A year before that at OutSystems, and a year before that I did some independent work for the University of Leeds, and that's the sum total of my documentation experience. So not that much really, bit of a new venture. Prior to that I had a career break while moving to Spain. That took about 6 years. Long drawn out process, I guess. And before that, 15 years, the University of Lancaster, and before that, another 20 or so years, but they are lost in the mists of time, so I won't go into them. Okay, so these are the things that we're going to look at today, and this is all my experience, my point of view from the coal face of doing documentation. That's a bit annoying. Can I not stand over here with that? I'll try. Okay. Yeah, so it's all my point of view. Even some members of the documentation team here might not agree with some of this. It's ongoing. We're developing. We're improving. So we're going to look at a bit of background to this project, Markdown, asciidoc, and managing the task, good, the bad, the ugly, lessons moving forward, and hopefully we'll have some questions or comments. That's fine as well. Okay, so this started early last year when product management wanted some sort of product differentiation or improve the product differentiation. So we had lots of Rancher community projects, Keyboard and Longhorn, etc. And I think they're looking to improve the Rancher offering, Rancher Prime, better things to sell, a better experience for customers. So we had product acquisitions. We acquired StackState last year. That's a proprietary product, though it's going to be an open source product, or at least largely open source, I believe, in due course. And we have paid for services, and we have community and CNCF projects as well. So all parts of the mix that come into this. And historically, the Rancher documentation team has been separate from the SUSE Linux documentation team, and this was one of the first times that we got together, started working together, and I don't know which one came first, but it's we are now the same team. We have merged and been working together for roughly about a year now, I think. So. Oh, and about the integration of two teams, one's kind of North America based mainly, documentation team, the other was mainly Germany based, so we had, minor cultural differences, I guess, and stuff like differing style guides, for example, and so we all had to come together and make improvements. Okay, so Rancher product suite is pretty diverse. How do you know all this stuff's related? Well, a lot of it says Kubernetes. There's use of the K letter there. There's some cattle related stuff with Rancher and Longhorn going on, Rancher desktop. But from rancher.com/docs, they're all a bit different, which is fine. They're different community projects. And we take a look at the documentation. So you've got things like, they've all got some icons, I guess. Search boxes, different formats of search boxes. That new vector one standing out quite sharply. I'm not even sure whether that's Hugo or Docusaurus. There are various, some of these have light mode and dark mode selectors. Some have the more from SUSE thing going on, or different community links. So not very consistent, and consistent's a word I'd like to come back to, because we're trying to have a more consistent experience for the customers who buy this stuff, or buy services for this stuff, or buy Rancher Prime. I think the best you can say is they've all got an icon, and it's all on the left-hand side of the documentation header, so at least you know how to get home and get started again. Right. Okay, so Markdown's popular, it's simple, it's easy to read, it's just plain text, people can use whatever editor they like, and it's amenable to source code control, it's very engineer friendly, they use it on GitHub all the time, readmes.md, etc. We have static site generators, there's lots of them, you can do it in many different ways, and they use different flavors of Markdown or different standards of Markdown, wide variety of tools. So we have Docusaurus, Hugo, and Gitbook still in active use on community projects. So that's a wide range of tools and different ways of doing things. And again, we're looking in the longer term for a bit of consistency. So Markdown standards, there was an original one way back when, and Common Mark and GitHub flavored, Markdown Extra. I'm not sure what R Markdown is, but it comes with the R language, but there are standards for these things. And people extend Markdown in various ways. You get a lot of this handlebar style integration, so you can do various bits and pieces in a more interesting way than the standard Markdown. So there's lots of ways of building on standard Markdown and getting the things that you need to do, getting that done. We'd like to have a more consistent approach again. And I can't reproduce this wonderful cartoon, but if you know XKCD, you'll all be aware of this one. It's how to go from 14 to 15 standards quite easily. So, copyright and commercial settings means I can't use it. That's a shame, but there we go. So I just want to look at one example now for getting a figure and fig caption construct into your HTML, and then you can style it afterwards. This is templating language, handlebars style, and it's from Hugo. So adding a figure, the alt text, the source of the image, and the title for it. And that's one of the ways that you can do it in Hugo. There's probably more than one, there often is. And different way in Docusaurus, or one of the different ways. So this is, you put in more or less the HTML directly in that figure construct, and then a bit markdown afterwards, with the alt text and the source of the image and a caption, and then in both cases you could style it however you wanted with some CSS, but not consistent, different ways of doing things, a lot of overload for people having to manage, work on these projects, different ways of doing things, a lot of context switching. Again, this lack of consistency. So asciidoc, fairly, don't know how recent it is. It's it's been around quite a while now, at least 8 years. I first came across it about 8 years ago. Popular, just plain text, simple, readable, maybe a bit less than Markdown. Markdown uses some indentation for indented lists. asciidoc, you might have to add in a plus symbol to achieve the same effect, but still, you know, you can read it and it's not that difficult. Again, plain text, so editor agnostic, source code control. It's engineer friendly. Yep, maybe they're not quite as used to it as they are with Markdown, but I'm no programmer, and switching between the two it's straightforward. You kind of almost don't notice after a while, and you just, especially when you're doing small bits of editing, you're just getting stuff done. So editors, engineers used to different languages are going to have no problem using asciidoc on our possibly community projects. Yeah. It's nice and flexible. We've got attributes and variables, which you don't really get with Markdown. You can, using facilities of your static site generator, you can build in these type of facilities, but we can set up variables, and we've got conditional processing as well. Include files, nice and flexible. So looking at these attributes, you can do if-def and if-endef processing and do different things based on attributes that you define. So we've got static site generators. I've only really used Antora for asciidoc. I believe you can do it in Hugo and Astra as well. But yeah, so there are a few static site generators. Flavors. I did come across what I thought was a flavor once, but I've not been able to find it since. It was a few months ago, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. Somebody's kind of done some sort of extension. I can't remember what it was. I forgot to bookmark it, and I can't find it again. So there is standards here. There's the asciidoc working group, under the purview of the Eclipse Foundation. So there's a standardization process going on, and there's mostly one way to do stuff. And that's, you know, helps with this consistency that we're looking for. Right. So Antora's open source, good strong community, plenty going on, lots of GitHub issues and backwards and forwards from, I think his name's Dan Allen's the project lead. He's been around for a long time working on this. Lots of stuff going on the chat, available at Zulip chat as well. And Antora generates for asciidoc. It's also flexible. So it's really nice to be able to build up a playbook and integrate sources from different places. So in this particular one, those URLs are highlighted. So pulling in content from New Vector and product docs, and we're creating a single site. We're applying styling from this place here, and some local styling available in supplemental files, which would be a Git submodule. So flexible, easy, YAML, no problem. It's good stuff. It's very easy to build sites up, complex sites from multiple components, multiple repositories. Right, so just side by side quickly. asciidoc, yeah, not as popular as Markdown, but I'm convinced it's growing. They're both simple, definitely readable. There are static site generators. There's probably more on the way. That sort of stuff's going to improve. No flavors, or that I've been able to find so far. Standards, an ongoing standards effort. So that consistency that I keep coming back to. Yeah, it's good. Right. So the task we had, not huge by any means, 8,000 odd markdown files, multiple release versions. So it's not like aircraft manuals or anything like that. But yeah, 6 technical writers on the Rancher side of things in 10 different repos, an engineering manager who's since moved on to do something in AI. I don't know if it was too traumatic for him, but this is where we started really working with the SUSE documentation team. 3 of them in here today, keeping an eye on me. Yeah. So, and we've got all this content, and we're using these 3 different static site generators in different ways with different constructs all over the place. So we wrote some scripts, created a Docker thing that was used to convert all these files, and then some post-processing and lots of manual editing. But not too much. It was mostly some common things that it wasn't very good at translating from one to the other. And we've had good success since then using using Copilot or Gemini to convert these things. And still an ongoing effort. We're still busy doing this. All right. So the good stuff. The Antora setup is great, really. There are lots of individual repos for the project. So we had Markdown repo for the community project, and now we have product documentation repos as well in asciidoc for the product docs. And individual repositories, responsible documentation person, documentation engineer, with each of those repos. And we were able to work together, constructing the grand site, the grand unified site of Rancher product documentation, using that playbook, or extension of that playbook sort of thing that I showed you a little bit earlier. And we worked on combined styling effort, which is definitely ongoing. We're doing stuff with accessibility and styling at the moment. So these playbooks are really flexible, and that's great. Very easy to have a local development preview. Just look at the stuff in the file system, in your local file system or local HTTP server, and we're using GitHub pages to build and preview the entire site before it gets transferred to documentation.suse.com, where all this product docs exists alongside as equals with the SUSE documentation. Okay, team consolidation. This has been a really good experience, and I think we're going to be better resourced moving forward. We're recruiting documentation people at the moment. 2 come on board in the past month. I think we're getting a bit more strategic because we have 2 rather than 1 manager, and there's a director of documentation, Frank Sundermeyer, probably all know him, and he's thinking strategically about documentation, so that's all great. And we've got better tools. Well, we've got expertise in tooling. My colleague here, Jana, is doing analytics for us, and we're improving the site quality. I think we're using tools like Site Improve to drag out all our contrast errors and accessibility errors, and starting to make improvements in them as well. I kind of struggled with this a little bit because it really wasn't all that bad, you know. It seemed more fraught coming up with a decision to do this and being told that we had to do it. And then once the decision's made, you just get on with it. And there was a bit of a learning curve, but you know, as we saw in those tables earlier, comparing asciidoc and Markdown, it's different, but not hugely different. Quite easy to get on with it, really. So, yeah, I struggled coming up with anything particularly bad about this project. The ugly was a bit easier. It seemed never-ending for me. At the very early part of last year, I did Hugo to Docusaurus migration. I completed all the work for it for Longhorn from Hugo to Docusaurus, and then we decided to do this instead. So I went straight from that into doing the same sort of thing for Markdown to asciidoc, and it just felt like I'd been writing ugly little scripts for ages to do this sort of thing. Yeah, so that's a picture of me after that migration attempt. Yeah, looking a bit grumpy. Tooling, we have too many tools. Still, you know, we're still using Docusaurus, still using Hugo, because these community documentation repositories are still active. The projects are still active. There, you know, some of them are CNCF. So, yeah, to what extent can we single source content? Can we move those community docs from Markdown to asciidoc? It's technically possible. We saw those things to do with variables, attributes, and the ability to make decisions based on those attributes. So I've been experimenting with the Cubewarden project, so I can, from single source, or at least partially, generate two separate sites, two different styling packages, the same content. In one it says Cubewarden, like the current community site does. It looks pretty much identically the same reddish color, and you change the style package and you change a couple of attributes to say Cubewarden product docs instead of Cubewarden community docs, and you can generate the Cubewarden product site. And looks pretty similar, different styling package, different wording, different whole chunks of text in there as well. So it is going to be possible to single source a lot of this stuff if we can. And I say if we can because the product management people, and the really good reasons for this, want separation of community documentation, community projects, different to Prime products. Okay, so they like that separation, so they've got clear things to be able to sell, I guess, and we would like a bit more tighter integration so we can single source this stuff better. So we're iterating. We'll get it right, or at least manageable in due course. So we've recently started some GitHub Actions work, or Billy has anyway, and he's, you know, noticing when things change in community docs or product docs and vice versa, and raising an issue to make sure the same thing happens in the alternative world as well. So, yeah, plenty to do there, I think, and we'll see how we get on. So it's just, it's, I have to crane my neck a bit. Oh, there's the mouse, okay. So this is the docs for Cubewarden, or SUSE Rancher Mission Policy Manager, registered trademark, keyboard and brackets. So I think we've got another iteration to do here and call it something snappier, perhaps. We're covering all the bases here, and there's probably a bit too much. And repeating that throughout the text instead of saying keyboard or maybe just admission policy manager, it's a bit messy anyway. So there's the documentation directly from SUSE.com, documentation.suse.com, and we want to make a change. So this is just really just to show you that it's dead easy. It's exactly the same as working with Markdown. And oh yes, there we go. Okay, so I'm already in the right place in my file system. I have the docs there. I'm in a GitHub repo. Sorry, a Git repo and a branch called blah. Oh yes, right, okay, so, and this is the one, I can't see this on my screen, so I'm going to give myself a bad neck here. Docs. And we're going to make that modification in 1.2.3, English, pages, introduction. Okay, and there is blah blah foobar. So I added it just before this, so I didn't have to try and type it live. But anyway, that's what we want the documentation to look like. And no, okay, so I'll just come out of that, and we have set up some basic, easy facilities. So if you were approaching this new, you might want to make sure that you've got the right environment. So it sets up Antora for you, and make Rancher DSC. Something style, something, I can't remember, but it's the new styles that we've been working on, and it's define a local build, and it does stuff. It uses one of these playbooks and generates a lot of errors because we still have work to do. Okay, and then you can okay. Right, so we're looking at version 122 should be, yes, so if I can find my mouse here, right. Ooh. And 123, blah blah foobar, there it is. So standard Git workflows, I'm not going to I'm not going to create a pull request for this and merge it. Don't want this sort of stuff going live. People get annoyed. Okay, so I'll just switch back to the presentation. So that's looking at my local file system, the changes I'm making in my local file system. And yes, right. Right, lessons. We should stop doing migrations. Hopefully we'll get to consistency this way, or at least get, where we have to manage that community to product and back and forth, a good process for doing that. It always seems it's going to be easier than it actually is. There's always extra stuff to do. Yeah, and we think we have it right now. We've got DocBook has always been used for the SUSE Linux content, and we've got asciidoc, and they're not conceptually a million miles apart. asciidoc has its origins, or its theoretical underpinning or whatever. It comes from DocBook. And for Cloud Native and SUME Uni projects, and probably more in the future. So now some of that good stuff I mentioned earlier. So we're working on style and accessibility. So we've got rid of a lot of contrast problems where insufficient contrast, basically for people with low vision or vision issues. There's lots of ARIA labels going in for various bits and pieces, making sure images have alt text. And we're doing the navigation. There's lots of navigation components, little arrows and triangles that rotate and that sort of thing that need labeling so that somebody who can't use a mouse can navigate with voice control perhaps or the keyboard. So I'm doing a lot of that at the moment, but I'm really looking forward to getting back to 2 words, actual content generation. It seems ages since I actually wrote something for Qboard, which is my home project, if you like. And I would like to get back to this. I feel like I'm becoming a bit too much of a documentation engineer instead of a person who actually writes documentation. But kind of difficult to get away because there's always improvements. There's always something else that needs to be done to improve this stuff. So the search is pretty rubbish at the moment, so we've got stuff to do that. The search for the Rancher docs, the search for the Linux docs is absolutely fine. I should be clear. So